side note, I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with me or my story or what I'm doing. My name is Lee Horne. I'm from the Restoration Ranch Ministry in Bascom, Florida. We house men out of prison and people in need, and we raise a lot of our own food, and we put that food in distribution. We share our food with the missions and with affiliate congregations, and Yahweh has just given us the ability to just bless people with what we're providing. We raise raw cow's milk, raw goat's milk, free-range eggs, pasture-raised poultry, cheese, honey. We have about 90 beehives, and today, before you guys go, make sure you take home some raw milk and some cheese. We brought some, and we also brought some pasture-raised poultry for us to consume today. And we just want to share, our blessings with you guys. But today I'm going to share a little bit of my story, my history, what brought me to doing what I'm doing, and then also we're going to dig into Romans chapter 5 through 8 and see how it directly relates with the person I used to be and where I'm at now. We're going to talk about the rebellious nature. The rebellious nature has a connection to the law, and we're going to talk about that connection. But anyway, as far back as I can remember, I was a bad, rebellious child. My oldest memories were getting in trouble. And the missing element was the scriptures. Parents are supposed to teach the scriptures to their children and their children's children. And these scriptures are the moral compass for children until they're old enough to make wise decisions themselves, until they're mature enough to make decisions for themselves. Now, it wasn't my mother's fault that I wasn't raised in the scriptures. That chain had been broken a long time ago. She wasn't raised in the scriptures. And there's a difference between being raised around the Bible and having a good understanding of the Bible. And today in the mainstream, the instructions of the Most High is not the guideline that they're teaching to the children. Now, there are families that are raising their children in the Bible, but it's a different interpretation of the Bible, and they're not using the instructions as the backbone of how we're supposed to live. My parents divorced when I was 18 months old, so I was pretty much raised without my father. There were, I did have a couple stepfathers, but didn't really have a good relationship with my stepfathers either. I was always getting in trouble in school. I was labeled as an ADHD kid, and I took Ritalin and Adderall to dope me up, to keep me shut up while I was in school. And I did not finish high school because I never made it to class and I was always late. And I started smoking pot and drinking around the age of 15 and smoking cigarettes. And before I got out of high school, I had already tried cocaine and ecstasy and mushrooms and LSD. And immediately after being kicked out of high school, I was, started moving large quantities of drugs. And I was actually selling drugs before I got out of high school. I was selling drugs in high school. And by the age of 24, I was trafficking large amounts of ecstasy, cocaine, and marijuana from Miami, Florida to South Georgia. And that's all I did. That's all I did was move drugs. I would go down there and pick up drugs and go up to Georgia, partying along the way, staying up for 2 or 3 days at a time, taking a little nap and doing it again. And I looked like walking death. And somebody actually told me that I looked like walking death. And it was a girl. Apparently she was a believer, but she wasn't walking in the faith. But she asked me if I believed. And she said, I know you believe. She said, I know you do. I've heard you talk about it. She said, but you are killing yourself. You look like walking death. And I started crying. And I said, I don't know how to stop. This is all I know how to do. And I said, I don't have power over this. And I was confessing at that moment that life and those drugs and that lifestyle had control over me. And I did not know how to get out of it. And I was always paranoid. I always felt like I was being followed. And the irony of that is he was following me. And one day I was riding down the road and I pulled over at an empty church. And I felt like just something instinctively grabbed the wheel and turned into this empty church. And there was a guy out raking the yard, and I said, is there a counselor or a preacher, somebody I can talk to? I need help. And he said, no, there's nobody here. And I said, well, can I go in and pray? And he said, sure. And I remember walking into this church, down this aisle, and I just fell down on my hands and knees, crying. And I said, if you're there, do something. I'm tired of living this life. Take me out of this life. And I got up and forgot that it ever happened. And I always believed in a Savior because when I was about this tall, my grandma told me that the Savior died for my sins. And I always believed that, but no one ever taught me what it meant to surrender. No one taught me what it meant to repent. You know, I thought growing up that when you do bad, that was sin. But we have a Savior who died for our sins. That was the extent of my understanding of the Bible. And I was forced to go to church a few times. And, you know, my mother and my grandparents figured, you know, if they forced me to go, obviously I'm just going to get it. But while the pastor's talking, I'm off doing my, attention deficit thing, which I don't believe that's a chemical imbalance. I believe that was just my nature. I was off in a different world, doing other things in my mind. And I believe that that's actually a gift in some ways. If you can just focus your attention on something, focus that good attention. And then in the Bible studies, when they're teaching about Noah and Daniel in the lion's den, you know, I might have picked up a little bit of those stories, but that's not what a person needs to live a life of faith. Yeah, the stories are good, but children need to know what it means to surrender your life. He wants all of you, not part of you. He wants you to be separated from the world. And when you're attached to the world, you're going to have problems. You know, you're going to have problems anyway, but when you're surrendered to Him, those problems are for your training and for your teaching, for your good. So anyway, he answered that prayer. When I challenged him and I said, take me out of this life, well, he answered it good. I was arrested and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. And it was I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for every day that I spent in prison. It was a tremendous blessing. Not many people will tell you that. But not only did I need it, I deserved it. I deserved I deserved more. And I could have used some more time in there because I used my time wisely. Immediately I was drawn to the faith. I was given a hunger and thirst that I can't explain to any other human being. And, you know, I got arrested and I knew that I was going to be I could be facing up to 15 years or more. I got caught with large amounts of cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, GHB, and LSD all in one leg. And my first couple days in jail, I heard some music out on the basketball court, and it was inmates singing songs of praise. And I had been sitting on this couch staring at the TV, not paying attention to what was going on at the TV, just kind of standing there like, what have I done? Where am I going to go now? What am I going to do? What is going on? But anyway, those songs drew me out to the basketball court. I went out there and I was just drawn to these men that were singing, and I was just standing there like listening, and they started talking to me, and I started bawling, and I knew he was showing me right then, this is what you asked for. I answered your prayer. And they asked me, they said, are you ready to surrender your life? And I said, oh man. And I look back at my life and the mental hospitals. I've been in the mental hospital numerous times from drugs. My kidneys had shut down. I've been in a drug-induced coma. And I woke up in the mental hospital weeks, months later. I couldn't talk. I couldn't communicate with people. People would talk to me, and I couldn't respond back to them. And I remember this so clearly. I remember people snapping their fingers in front of my face to see if I would communicate back with them and talk back to them. And my mind was gone. I've been in numerous car accidents and near-death experiences, run-ins with the law, probation, and none of that worked. My parents couldn't change me, the hospital couldn't change me, the law couldn't change me. Him answering the prayer the way he did was the only thing that could have changed me, because I was so deep in it, I had to be separated from it. I had to be separated from it. And if you've got, loved ones and friends out there that are in bondage to drugs, the best thing for them is to be separated from their environment, separated from the people that are influencing their behavior. With me, I was the one doing the influencing. I didn't have to have people influencing my behavior. I was the root of, the problem. And but anyway, I did need to be pulled away from that drug environment and to get saturated in the Word. And the more somebody has been down that road of sin, the more rooted and grounded they need to be in the Word. They need the Word that much more. So anyway, I remember when I said, I was looking back at all these things that didn't change me, and I said, Father, you're the only thing I haven't tried. I haven't given you the opportunity. And I surrender all to you. I want to live for you. I want to speak your word. And I just pray that you would not let me be deceived by man-made doctrines. I want to know the truth, and I don't want to be influenced by all the other isms and schisms out there. I want to know you, and I want to know your word. And that's all I did. I got out about 11 months early. So I ended up doing 5 years and 7 months. And I was known as the Bible guy. I stayed on my bunk and I tore my Bible apart. I studied all the isms and schisms. I read about Catholicism, Seventh-day Adventism, Jehovah's Witnessism. I read the Quran. I wanted to know why people believed what they did, because I felt like unless I knew what they believed and why, I couldn't tell them they were wrong. And I come to the conclusion that His word is true and every man is a liar in comparison. So I wanted to see it in the word for myself. And anytime I heard a pastor or a different viewpoint, I saw if it lined up with Scripture. And the Adventist faith was definitely the biggest eye-opener to things like the Sabbath and the dietary laws. And one of the things that actually opened the door to the rest of truth was Colossians chapter 2. They like to separate the moral law from the ceremonial law. And they think that the ceremonial law was nailed to the cross, to the torture stake. And so I couldn't get over. I was like, I had been fed with, all the feast days and circumcision and anything ceremonial. Well, that's been nailed to the cross and done away with, because those things are a shadow, and He is the body casting the shadow. So since the body's here, we don't need the shadow. That was the way that's why the interpretation had been presented to me. And somebody another inmate said, there's a guy in another dorm over here, he kind of talks like you. He kind of says words and things that you say. You guys might need to get together. So I ran into this guy, and he was saying that the feast days were still relevant. And he talked about, giving honor to the names of the Creator and His Son. And I was like, well, what about Colossians 2? It says that these things were nailed to the stake. And he said, I'm not sure, but I just know that interpretation doesn't line up with the rest of Scripture, because these things are forever. And he said, well, we'll pray about it. So I prayed, Father, why is, there's something in this verse that I'm not getting. And if you just show it to me, I want to be submissive to your truth. If you want me to, if your feast days are still relevant, just show me. And I was reading and meditating on that verse, and a word popped out. And it says these things are a shadow of things to come. It does not say they were shadows. They are, meaning still future tense. And then he took me to the Passover in Luke chapter 22, where it says, I will not eat of this Passover until it's fulfilled in the kingdom. So, out of his own mouth, he said it's not fulfilled until he eats it in the kingdom. So that, right around that time period, I was listening to an AM radio station, just scrolling through, and I picked up a guy in Texas that was talking about feast days. And I was like, wow, if that's not confirmation. And then I had a civilian that was coming in and working with me in the prison, and he said, this is all around the same time period, he said, yeah, my brother said my daddy was going crazy because he was calling the Father Yahweh and he was calling the Son Yeshua. So I set out to see if my father was really crazy or not, and he was talking about feast days and stuff like this, and I told my brother that daddy was right, that the feast days were still valid, and that those were the true names of the Father and the Son. And this has all happened within just a few weeks time period. And this was, he was revealing new truth to me, and it was time for me to step up and challenge what I was hearing. And of course, I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny his word. While I was in prison, some inmates asked me if I wanted to work at the wastewater plant. And I was like, absolutely not. People get sick around that stuff. And they said, well, you'll have your own office out in the woods and you won't be around other officers or inmates. And I said, sign me up. So I ended up working at a wastewater plant in the woods for 2 years of my sentence, studying the Bible, studying wastewater, and studying Spanish. And I walked out of prison with a wastewater license. And I started on my drinking water license. Now, I had a desire to be in ministry. I felt like that's what I was called. Other people told me that's what I was called to do. But I said, Father, if you want me to study this wastewater as a side career, just give me a sign. Within 24 hours, 2 people said, if you don't get your wastewater license, you're done. So I was like, okay. So I went ahead and studied the wastewater, got my license. Well, when I got out, I couldn't get a job. And it's very difficult for somebody with numerous felonies to get a job. People don't want to give them the opportunity. People have been burnt so many times. And I would go to the congregation and they'd say, does anybody have a praise report? And I'd say, yeah, I don't have a job. He says, praise him in all things, so I'm just going to praise him for not having a job. I don't know why, but I'm praising him anyway. And They said, anybody got a prayer request? I said, I need a job. I need a job. So after a year and a half, no phone calls, no interviews, I would call people and say, why didn't y'all call me? And they said, you're a drug dealer. We don't want your kind here. Why didn't you just invite me in for an interview to meet me? You know, you might have liked me. This is a drug-free workplace. We don't want people with drug charges here. And I said, I paid my debt to society. I can pass a drug screen. I can prove that I'm not on drugs. We don't care. Zero tolerance here. Okay. So after a year and a half, I got a phone call. And they were building a $22 million wastewater plant about an hour and 15 minutes from where I was living. And they asked me to come in for an interview. And the mayor used to be a preacher. And the preacher saw on my application that the Bible is my faith. And nothing comes before that. And he told the city manager, that's the man for the job. So I've been there 7 years. I'm the manager over this $22 million project. And after I got my drinking water license, they got rid of the other guy, and I'm dual certified, and I hold 2 positions for the same town. And I learned how to fix a pump while I was on this job that nobody else could fix. And another town got word that I knew how to fix this pump, and they asked if I'd come over here and look at their pumps. So I went over there, and they said these are $2,000 pumps, and the local guys are coming in telling these people to throw these pumps away, that they're no good, and they're replacing them with $400 and $500 pumps. So the homeowner is out $2,000 for the pump that was in there, and they're putting in these cheaper pumps that supposedly last longer. So I go over there, and they said there's a trash pile of these pumps. And I said, bring me the pumps that are on the trash pile. I fixed them for $200. The homeowners were hot. They said, you need to hire this guy because he's the solution to the problem. So they offered me $10,000 more, working 16 hours less. And I told my boss man, I was like, boss man, I just want to let you know there's another town over here. This is what they're offering me. They're offering a 4-day schedule, 6 hours a day. Monday through Thursday, 6 hours a day, and they're offering me $10,000 more than what you're paying me now. He said, well, you never know what their council members are going to do or how long that's going to last. They might want you, and a year later they decide they don't want you. You have a future here, and I'm willing to work with you a little bit. I'll give you a 4-day schedule, a company truck, put you through electrician school, and when you're done, I'll give you a raise. And I chose to stay where I was at because I was there during construction, and I know this. I'm the only one that knows the system. If anybody replaces me, I'm gonna have to train them. And this other town, the wastewater operator, he didn't want me there because I was a threat to his job. And his uncle was on the board, council member. He didn't want me there either, So anyway, I was so excited that a drug dealer could come so far and be so blessed. I put my testimony on Facebook. And at the time, I had about 300 friends, and I just talked about this job that I had. And I think the title of the post was, I'm a convicted felon. And that post was seen, it was posted to 46,000 other pages in 3 weeks. And Chris's manager shared the post with her up here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And she friended me, and there was just something about her that really, I wasn't looking for a woman. I wasn't looking for a relationship. But for some reason, I just couldn't get this woman off of my mind. And so I started communicating with her, and she said that she had been single for over 10 years, never been married, no kids, and she was just waiting on him to move. And so anyway, we're engaged, and we hope to be married sometime next year. I started doing prison ministry 3 years after I got out. I was going back into the prison doing a Hebrew roots Bible study. And I was finding men who were serious about their faith, but they had no place to go. They had no, they burned their bridges. But I started bringing men out of prison and housing them on, let me tell you about the farm real quick. When I started commuting from Panama City to this job, which is an hour and 15 minutes away, and I couldn't get approved by the banks or loans, and found a government program called Rural Development, and they will give financing to people who can't get approved by the banks, and who have good jobs but don't have good credit. So I qualified. I had no credit. The banks turned me down. So anyway, I found this house on 20 acres, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on 20 acres for $67,000, and they financed the whole thing. Now the mortgage company, they were criminals. I told them that the well wasn't working. They said, well, if you want the house, then you need to get the well fixed. I was like, wow. And I said, why don't you guys send somebody over to see what it's going to cost to get fixed? And their guy told them $3,000 to fix it, $4,000 to replace it. And they said, we'll pay for half to get it fixed. We don't care if it's brand new. We just need the water flowing, so we'll give you half. So they sent me a check for $1,500. It cost $10 to fix it. It was a start capacitor inside the motor. Put a new start capacitor in, it cranked right up. So that was a blessing. So not only did I get in the house with no money down, got some money back from the water well that wasn't working. So anyway, the first guy we took in 2012, he had just lost his wife, he lost his job, his electricity had been turned off, and he was about to be evicted. He came from a very traumatic childhood and drugs and things like that. He's still with us today. And he's got a good job, he's got a car, and he has come out of his shell socially. There's 4 people in the main house, soon to be 5. There's a family of 5 that lives next door. I'm in a camper, and Congregation of Yahweh in Panama City has offered to pour us a slab foundation for a new building. And it's been my dream within the past year or so to be able to house at least 20 or 30 people in a dormitory room with a classroom style setting. And my heart goes out to not only people that are on drugs, but people who get out of prison that can't find work. And I've been coming up with a solution to that. We've invested, I got a loan for lawn equipment. We got a nice lawnmower, chainsaw, weed eater, pressure washer, blower, hedge trimmer, edger, and hopefully in the spring we're going to send out crews to do landscaping for people that can't get jobs. Two of the guys do have jobs, and jobs out there. Actually, 3 guys have jobs out in the secular world, and then 2 guys are doing full-time on the farm. But the vision is to provide full-time employment for everybody and be a ministry that can sustain itself for the most part. We do have a few people outside that contribute to what we're doing, and without them it would not be possible. But so anyway, that's where I'm at right now with the Restoration Ranch Ministry. We have a waiting list of people that are ready to come stay on the farm when they get out of prison. We don't take just anybody and everybody. Priority number 1, you've got to believe the Bible, and you've got to believe that that's where the answers to life's problems are. If you don't believe that, I can't help you. I don't know how to help you, because that's the only thing I know that works, and it worked for me, and I see it works in the lives of other people. So that's enough about me. I want to get into this word, which I'm much more excited about. I've spent quite a bit of time in the book of Romans, specifically Romans 5 through 8. I think that there's something there that there's something there that I really want to share today that I'm excited about. I want to say a quick prayer before we get into the Word. Father, I just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to share your Word, to glorify you, and to bring honor to your name. Father, I pray right now that you would pour out your Spirit on each and every person in this room. I pray that you would stir up the gift of your Spirit inside of us, Father, that you would just allow your presence to be known. And I pray that this message might touch someone today, and that if anybody hears it in the future, that it might touch them and draw them closer to you, Father. And I just pray that all of my words would come from you, Father, not me, and that you would just manifest your truth today as we dig deeper into your word. We love you so much. We thank you for the precious gift of your Son who died for our sins. In his name we pray. Hallelujah. All right. For the sake of time, I'm going to be just extracting a few verses here and there. If anybody goes to my Facebook page, there's an in-depth verse-by-verse study on this, and I can be found under Pastor Lee, and then on Facebook, and also the forum is Restoration Ranch Ministry. You can find it there. We also have www.restorationranchministry.com. And I was discussing with a brother earlier. He was using us to refer us to someone else, and told him to call. Well, if you guys know somebody that might need some help, also give them a link to the website, because they're going to learn more about what we do, who we are, where it came from. Because when people hear Restoration Ranch Ministry, and it's a place to get help, they might think that it's a 12-step program or some type of psychiatric treatment facility or something like that. But when you learn that we're just a community of believers who are searching out their faith and trying to grow our faith, and it's anyway, a lot of people are scared to get locked up in a facility, but this is something totally different, and it's all, our curriculum is the Bible. All right, in Romans chapter 5 and verse 12, it says, "Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. Sin and death entered in through one man." Verse 19 of chapter 5. "For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous." This is one reason why Yeshua was called the second Adam. The first Adam was a figure or a shadow of the second Adam, and there's a huge connection there. But sin, disobedience, and death came through the first Adam. Obedience and righteousness come through the second Adam. Adam lost the image. The second Adam came to give the image back. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Getting rid of the old image, the old man, and taking on the new man, the new image, being clothed with that new image. And ladies and gentlemen, we were all born into something that needs to die. And if it's not dead, we're missing something. And there's a lot of people out there that claim to know the Messiah and follow the Messiah, but that old man is still there, and it's not dead. And we're going to discuss today putting that old man to death. All right, we'll start off in chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, "What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound?" We need to let the Bible identify terms. What is sin? "Shall we continue in sin that grace may be that much more?" Romans chapter 3 verse 20 says, "By the law is the knowledge of sin." Romans chapter 4 verse 15 says, "Where there is no law, there is no transgression." Romans chapter 7, verse 7. I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Sin is transgression of the law. So when it says, shall we continue in sin, it's obviously talking about his law, his instructions. Shall we continue to transgress his instructions, that grace would be that much more? Certainly not. Certainly not. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? How shall we that are dead to transgression of his law live any longer therein? I'm going to show you a connection. The death of the old man, death of the old rebellious nature, is being dead to sin. Know you not that so many of us as were baptized into Yeshua Messiah were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Messiah was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. So our old nature was put down into the grave with him so that we could be resurrected in newness of life. Old man, new man. Wherefore, we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Verse 6. Knowing this, that our old man is impaled or crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed. Body of sin, let's talk about this body, our old nature body. That it might be destroyed, which means rendered powerless, rendered idle or useless. These things are taking place in the spiritual realm to remove the power of sin from our bodies. And verse 7. For he that is dead is free from sin. That means if your old man is truly dead, you're set free from transgressing his law. Because the old man is the rebellious nature. It's the desire to, I want to do it anyway. And we're gonna find out where that came from here in just a minute. In verse 11, likewise reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto El through Yeshua Messiah our Master. Let not sin reign in your mortal body. Do not let the power of sin rule inside of you in this temple. Do not let it rule you. Do not allow it to be your master, that you should obey it in the lusts thereof. Don't let sin rule in your body, that you should obey the lusts. Don't obey the lust. This flesh wants to do what it wants to do. And that's what we talked about earlier, about children needing the instructions to keep that rebellion in check until they're old enough to make decisions for themselves. Because the rebellious nature unchecked is what's going on in society right now. The moral decay of society is from the rebellious nature not being checked by the instructions of the Creator. Now, we talked about death of the old man, dying with the Messiah, and if you're truly dead, you're set free from transgression. Let's find out, let's read a couple verses here. Galatians chapter 2, Paul gives us a little bit more of an illustration of what we're talking about here. Chapter 2 and verse 20, I am crucified or impaled with Messiah. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Messiah lives in me. So when the old nature truly dies and he puts the Spirit into your life, it's not you living no more. It's the Spirit living inside of you. And if you truly surrendered, the Spirit's not going to lead you to transgress no more. The Spirit's not going to lead you to go out and steal and commit adultery and do all those things, because the Spirit in you, He's the one living. That old man that used to do what he wanted to do, he's dead. And if he's truly dead, you're not under the law because you don't want to disobey the law. See, there's a confusion out there when they see we're not under the law but under grace. They think, oh, we don't need to obey because we're under the grace. But if you're truly under the grace and you've received of His Spirit, you don't want to break it no more, so you're not under the condemnation of it no more. Let's find out who is under the law. 1 Timothy chapter 1 tells us who's under it. And verse 8, but we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and the disobedient, for the wicked, for sinners, for unholy, for profane, for murderers of fathers, murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for perjured persons, and if there be anything contrary to sound doctrine. And we know what sound doctrine is. His instructions are sound doctrine. The Messiah said, my doctrine is not my own, but his that sent me. So, all of these things that were just named, those are the people that are under the law because they're still doing it and they're under the condemnation of it. So if the spirit of him that was raised from the dead be in you, you're not under the law because the spirit wouldn't cause you to transgress the law. Alright, another verse in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 24. They that are Messiahs have impaled or crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. That's how you know somebody's truly in the Messiah. The affections and lusts have been put to death. That's how you know somebody's truly in him. Ephesians chapter 4. Starting in verse 17. This I say therefore, and testify in the Master, that you henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their minds, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of El through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But you have not so learned Messiah, if so be you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Yeshua, that you put off concerning the former conversation. That word conversation means behavior. Put off the former behavior, the old man which is corrupt according to deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and you put on the new man, which after El is created in righteousness and true holiness. That word, put on the new man, put on means to be clothed with. It's sliding into a garment. And it's the same word used in Galatians chapter 3, around 26, 27. It says, if anyone is in Messiah, he has put on Messiah. You have become clothed with the Messiah. Why? Because the old man is dead, the Spirit has come in, and you're walking in the image of the Son, who is the image of him. We've been predestined to be conformed to the image of the Son, according to Romans chapter 8, and the Son is the image of the Father. So what Adam lost, the Son is giving back. Hallelujah. And according to 1 John, we need to walk as he walked. You can't be his image unless you're walking like he walked. Hallelujah. And he was obedient unto death. Back to Romans chapter 6. And I'm going to pick up in verse 11 again. Likewise, reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto El through Yeshua Messiah our Master. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in the lust thereof. That means obedience to sin. And we're going to find a repetitious theme over these few chapters here, and it's death. Over and over and over, it's talking about death. And we need to understand, to give us a better understanding of the next chapter, we need to understand that when it's talking about us dying, it's talking about that old rebellious nature. Verse 14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace. Well, guess what? If you are under the law, sin can have dominion over you. And that's what we just read over there in 1 Timothy chapter 1. Those that are still living in those things, sin has dominion over them, and they are under the law. They're under the condemnation of it, and also there is a passion in them to transgress it. And that is one of the main focus points that I want to talk about today. There is a passion to sin in the fallen nature. And it started in the garden. The commandment was, don't eat from that tree. A seed was implanted into humanity. And it said, you can eat it anyway. He's lying to you. It's good for food. You can do what you want to and you're not going to die. That is the rebellious nature. And we, not, if we're walking in the Spirit, we don't have that. But humanity has that rebellious, I can do it anyway. And his instructions is what keeps that in check. His instructions identify what that is. That's how we know what sin and rebellion is, through the instructions. And when there is an instruction in place, the rebellious nature says, I want to do it anyway. Now, let's look at verse 16. Know you not that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are, to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness. Now, this word unto also means resulting in. So if you obey sin, that results in death. And if you obey obedience, that results in righteousness. Now, let's get down to chapter 7. This is where it starts getting real good right here. A lot of people use Romans chapter 7 to say, Paul struggled with sin every day. But they're missing the context. They're missing the context. He is talking about someone who is still in the flesh. We're going to find that here in just a minute. But first, keep in mind that over and over in chapter 6 it talks about death of the old man, being dead to sin. And now he gives us a very interesting allegory of marriage. Watch this. Chapter 7 verse 1. Know you not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law. I'm talking to people who are educated in the Torah. How that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. That is an amazing verse that the mainstream should really zoom in on and get hold of. People that are intelligent about the law know that as long as you're alive, the law has dominion over you. If you've got breath in your lungs, the Creator's instructions have dominion over you. Okay? For the woman which hath a husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he lives. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. So then if, while her husband lives, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is freed from the law, so that she is no longer an adulteress, though she be married to another man. So as long as a man is alive, that woman is bound to her husband. And if she goes and messes with any other man, she's committed adultery. But if he's dead, that law doesn't apply to her anymore. She's loosed from it. She's free from it because he's dead. Now watch this, next verse. Wherefore, my brethren, you also are become dead to the law by the body of Messiah, that you should be married to another, even to him who is raised from the dead. Your old nature died to the law so that you could be married to him. And the reason your old nature had to die, we're about to find out, because that releases you from something. When your old nature, when your old nature dies to the law, you're released from that passion and the desire to rebel. 4 times in this chapter he's gonna say something, and he's gonna say that passion and that rebellion came from the law. Watch this. I'm going to skip down a little bit. In verse 5 it says, for when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin which was by the law. That word motions there means passion. The passion of sin came from the law. If the law wasn't in place, the flesh couldn't say, I want to do it anyway. If he hadn't said, don't eat from the tree, the rebellious nature could have said, I want to eat from the tree anyway. So when the commandment is there, that that's when the passion is arousing us to be rebellious. But we need to be released from that passion to sin. And it happens by the Spirit coming into your life, changing your heart and mind, and causing you to obey, according to Ezekiel 36:26, I believe. That new spirit and that new heart causes you to want to obey and releases you from the rebellious nature that says, I want to do it anyway. Now that theme is repeated 4 times. Watch this. But it's worded a little differently. In verse 8, sin taking occasion by the commandment. Verse 11, sin taking occasion by the commandment. Verse 13, was then that which is good made death unto me? Certainly not. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. 4 times he tells us that sin comes through the commandment. When I understood this, it made another verse make sense. Flip over to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 real quick. And we're going to come right back. Chapter 15 and verse 56 says, the sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. When the law is put in place, it gives strength to the rebellious nature. That's what arises the rebellion in us when we know what we're not supposed to do. Okay? And again, that's where his instructions come into play, keeping that rebellious nature in check until we are converted. Train up a child in the way that they'll go when they're old. They won't depart from it. All right, let's go back to Romans chapter 7 again. We talked about the marriage here. When the husband dies, she's free from that law. In like manner, when our old nature dies, it sets us free so that we can be married to him. All right. Verse 5 tells us the context of the rest of the chapter. When we were in the flesh. Everything that you're about to read is the battle while you're living in the flesh. This is not saying Paul struggled with sin every day. He's about to explain to us what the battle is like and how to overcome it. For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin, which was by the law, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death. Members means your body parts. In your body. The passion of sin worked in your body to bring forth fruit unto death. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held. What held us? The rebellious nature. That's what held us. That's what we needed to be set free from. See, a lot of people out there in the mainstream, they're teaching that he came to change his instructions. I'm here to tell you, he came to change human beings. Yes. He came to change us. In Hebrews, it says about the first covenant and the second covenant, he says, for finding fault with them, he made place for a second covenant. He found fault with the people. And it was the people that needed to change, not the instructions. And he did that by an act of love. That's why the first covenant was a 2-sided agreement. The second covenant was only 1-sided. First covenant was, if you do this, then I will do this. Second covenant, I'm going to do this. And how did he do that? He sent his son. We receive of his spirit, and bam, it's him performing the work inside of us. We're not doing it. We're called by grace, and he works on us by grace, and he finishes the work in us that he started. New covenant is 1-sided. I will do this. Chapter 7, verse 6 again. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit and not oldness of letter. Mainstream interpretation, we follow the spirit, we don't have to follow the letter. What this is actually saying, when you follow the spirit, you won't transgress the letter. What's a good example of this? Matthew chapter 5. You heard that it was said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I tell you, if you lust after a woman, you've committed adultery with her in your heart already. The letter says don't commit adultery. The spirit says don't lust after her. So if you are obedient to the spirit, you won't transgress the letter. Verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Certainly not. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence, for without the law sin was dead. So what this is saying is this commandment put in place worked all kinds of unclean lusts in him. It brought it to the surface. We're going to find out here in a minute that the law points out and magnifies what sin is. I think it's going to say to make it exceedingly sinful. Verse 9. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. See, the commandments were designed to bless you, to bless the fruit of your womb, bless you going in the city, bless you going out. Bless, 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 bless. But what Paul is finding here is all it's doing is pointing out my wickedness. It's pointing out the rebellious nature in me. So what he said was good and ordained to life, all it's doing is pointing out death in me. So then he goes on to say, verse 11, for sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by me slew me. Wherefore, the law is holy, and the commandment holy and just and good. Was then that which is good made death unto me? Certainly not. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. What he's saying is the law was good, and what it's doing is I've got a relationship with me that it draws out my evil passions and my evil desires, and it's pointing out what's wrong, making it exceedingly sinful. That the instructions are putting its finger on that sin. Verse 14, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. I always like to cross-reference chapter 8, verse 5 with this verse. It says the law is spiritual, and chapter 8, verse 5 says, they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, and they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit. So if you're walking in the spirit, and you're minding the things of the spirit, you'll be minding his law, because his law is spiritual. Verse 15, for that which, now this is, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, because this is kind of a little confusing. It kind of flops back and forth, but I'm gonna put it in plain terms here. Verse 15. For that which I do, I don't allow others to do. For what I want to do, this is what I don't do. But what I hate, this is what I do. This reminds me of when I was out there living in the world. I'd wake up the next morning after a life of drugs and partying, feeling miserable. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. If then I do that which I don't want to do, I consent unto the law that it is good. Ladies and gentlemen, as long as human beings are out there doing what they know is wrong and doing what they don't like, it's proof that his law is good. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwells in me. If a person is out there doing what they don't want to do, and they're doing it anyway, it's not them that's doing it. It's the sin dwelling in them. For I know that is in me, that is in my flesh, dwells no good thing. For the will is present with me. That means the desire is present. But how to perform that which is good, I find not. I have a desire to do the right thing, but I can't figure out how to do it. For the good that I want to do, I don't do. But the evil which I don't want to do, this is what I'm doing. I'm practicing the evil that I don't want to do. Now, if I do that I don't want to do, it's no more I, but the sin that dwells in me. I find then a law that when I want to do good, evil is still present with me. Kind of like the law of gravity. That's just the way it is. When I want to do the right thing, evil is still here. Reminds me of what he told Cain. Sin is crouching at the door. His desire is for you, but you must rule over him. Right there in Genesis, sin was called a him that you need to take dominion over. And right here it says, even when you want to do the right thing, sin is right there present with you, crouching at the door. For I delight in the law of Yahweh after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, in my body, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into the captivity of the law of sin, which is in my members. He said, just like the law of gravity, there is a natural order of things that my flesh wants to do what it wants to do, and it's warring against my mind. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? He's saying that his own flesh, his own body is his enemy. And it's an enemy of his mind. And he's saying, who's going to deliver me from this carcass that I'm dragging around? Who's going to save me from this? He asks us the question. I thank El through Yeshua Messiah, our Master. So then, with my mind, I myself serve the law of El, but with the flesh, the law of sin. With his mind, he can serve Yahweh, but his flesh is always going to want to rebel into sin. Chapter 8, verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Messiah Yeshua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Messiah Yeshua hath set me free from the law of sin and death. The Spirit of life has set him free from sin and death. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Yahweh sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. See, Galatians says if righteousness could have come by the law, then truly it would have came through the law. But the reason righteousness couldn't come through the law is because it only identified sin. It did not empower man to change. But the Spirit comes in and empowers us to obey the letter. What the law could not do, in that it was weak in the flesh, Yahweh sent his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh and for sin to condemn sin in the flesh. What the Messiah did was to condemn sin in your flesh. He came to put a stop to transgressing the law in your flesh. Now watch this. The next verse is amazing. After you get that, what the law couldn't do, it was weak. He sent his Son to condemn sin in the flesh. Why? Verse 4. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us. That's amazing. What the Son did for us was allow us to walk out the righteousness of the law by the power of his Spirit. Hallelujah. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh but after the Spirit. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against El, and is not subject to the law of El, neither indeed can be. Ladies and gentlemen, that verse tells us why it's so easy for the mainstream to believe all those erroneous doctrines about the law being done away with, fulfilled, obsolete, only for the Jews. Whatever it is, it's just not for you. Why? Because the flesh does not want to be submissive to his instructions. And if there's a doctrine out there that says you don't have to be submissive, scratching on the ear, ooh, that sounds real good. They would rather believe a lie. They don't have a love for the truth. They would rather believe a lie because their carnal, fallen nature does not want to be submissive to instruction. There's a verse in, I think it's in Timothy, that says that people's God is their belly. They would rather obey their stomach than obey the instructions because the flesh does not want to be submissive. But, verse 9, but you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of El dwells in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Messiah, he is none of his. And if the Messiah be in you, the body is dead. The old nature body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him that raised up Yeshua from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Messiah from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwells in you. I'm going to close out there for now. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that? All right. Hallelujah. Thank you guys for your time. I enjoyed it.